On this episode of the Layover Live, we talk A/B testing with CRO rockstar Michelle Barnes. Welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Layover Live, where we bring you the top article from the Layover each week. I'm Jason Swick, Director of Digital Marketing, and I'm joined here by fellow colleague, CRO analyst Michelle Barnes. Michelle, welcome to the Layover Live.
Hello.
Happy to have you here because we're talking A/B testing today. And this week's can't miss article comes from Conversion Excel. And what it talks about is how to analyze your A/B test inside of Google Analytics. So since we're talking CRO, talking A/B testing, wanted to bring the expert in. So maybe tell our DMO friends at home what works best and how to set up Google Analytics properly to make sure you're bringing those test results into a way that's measurable beyond the click.
Yeah. So definitely, there's a lot of different tools that clients can use on their websites to do A/B testing. Mm-hmm. There's, like Jason said, VWO out there. There's Optimizely, Google Optimize, and then our own A/B testing module, which runs through Google Content Experiments.
Right. Works right with their CMS, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Plugs right in, plug and play. So one of the things when setting up an experiment, generally when it's done, you're looking for a few different things. Your significance level, you're looking at the sample size, and then you're making sure that it runs for a certain amount of time. But one of the things is you can have a winner declared, or you can basically, as the article states, you can reach the results or cook the experiment till it's done, but you really want to look and see how that impacted performance on your website. And for DMOs, this isn't just one metric.
Right.
A lot of times with other websites, you're looking at one impact and how is that performance. With DMOs, we're looking at partner referrals,
right.
We're looking at engagement, we're looking at sales if you have a booking widget, and then we're also looking at leads. So really what this article is saying is to look beyond the end of that experiment and the results, but look at your overall performance to see how that impacted everything on the website.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we often think about, these tools inherently have their own measurements inside of them, which is great, but only tells part of the story, right? Bringing that then into Google Analytics to be able to measure further and be able to see a little bit more of what's happening is really, really, really important. So as you're doing your A/B test, make sure you're connecting that to analytics properly. It's going to give you a much more conclusive, holistic story of what's happening. So now that we're kind of talking about UX, talking about CRO, it really brings us to our question of the week, which comes from Rebecca from the Beaumont CVB. She has a question around design. And often, this is a question we get all the time, right? Hey, if I'm creating a change in a layout, and this particular question that she has to do more with, I have a large header image, and now content is lower down the page or below the fold. Is there a way to be able to measure how far someone scrolls down a page to see if the changes that are made with the header image or a layout or whatever it may be is affecting performance in some negative way? So what are some ways that we might be able to help Rebecca and others out there measure scrolling?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few different things that you can do. Okay. The first one that I recommend for every site to do is to set up scroll tracking. This allows you to see at what depths the visitor is scrolling, and this just feeds right into your Google Analytics. You can pick out a particular page, so if you want to be the home page or internal pages on the site, you can see, are they scrolling 25% of the page, are they scrolling 50, 75, or are they scrolling all the way to the bottom? And that will give you a good idea of how visitors are getting on the page before they exit.
Yeah, very powerful.
So that's one tool that you can use. Another one is setting up heat mapping and scroll mapping. So scroll mapping in particular, this allows you to visually see where visitors are falling off the page. It kind of does the work for you in a snapshot to see, okay, this is the area of the site that gets the most focus. Are people exiting once they get to this point, or are they moving on to another page once they get there? So that's a good indicator of, hey, if they're not getting below that header image, maybe we need to add an additional call to action to say, hey, scroll further down the page. Maybe we need to test making the header image smaller so they can see some of that content below it. But really, those are two major tools that you can use to measure how visitors are getting down the site.
Yeah, and it's really great. I really like the scroll maps because they're really visual. It allows you to see it in kind of a color format, very similar to a heat map, as you mentioned, how people are engaging with certain elements. Are they even making it down the page? But it's also important to note there's many factors involved as well. But at minimum, if you're measuring it with scroll depth tracking or doing it with scroll maps, they're both really, really great ways to be able to do that. So Rebecca, great question. Thank you for sharing that. And we encourage all of you out there, if you have questions each and every week, please submit those to us. We love to share those on the air. And that's it for this edition of the Layover Live. Thank you for staying tuned, and we'll see you next week.
Rock out.